What if I told you that your debt is not a financial problem? It is a trap, a carefully engineered, deliberately designed, mathematically precise trap, built to keep you exactly where you are, forever. And what if I told you that almost everything you have been taught about getting out of debt is wrong? Not slightly off, not outdated, wrong. In a way that benefits everyone but you. The banks know it. The credit card companies know it. The financial institutions that profit from your monthly minimum payments. They all know it. And in the next 70 minutes, so will you. My name is not important right now. What is important is this. There is a secret at the heart of the debt industry. A mechanism so elegant, so invisible, so ruthlessly effective, that most people will carry debt to their graves without ever understanding why they could never escape it. I'm going to reveal that mechanism today. Not at the beginning. At the 20-minute mark. Because I need you to understand the full architecture of the trap first. Before I show you where the exit is. Stay with me. Because what you are about to learn will not just change how you handle debt. It will change how you see money. Permanently. Let us begin. Section 1. The anatomy of a trap. Let me tell you about a trap. Not a metaphorical trap. A real one. The kind wildlife researchers study in the field. A well-designed trap has 3 features. 1. It is invisible until you are already inside it. 2. The harder you struggle against it, the tighter it holds. 3. It is designed by something far more intelligent than the animal it catches. Now replace the word animal with the word debtor. And replace the word trap with the word consumer debt system. And you have an almost perfect description of what has happened to hundreds of millions of people around the world. Here is the reality. The average household carries thousands in consumer debt. Credit cards, personal loans, buy now pay later schemes, car finance, store cards, and the vast majority of those households are paying, and paying, and paying, month after month, year after year, and somehow, the balance never seems to move. That is not an accident. That is engineering. Think about how credit card minimum payments work. If you carry a balance of $5,000 on a card charging 20% interest, and you make only the minimum payment every month, do you know how long it takes to pay it off? Not 2 years, not 5 years, over 20 years, and you will pay more in interest than the original balance, twice over. The bank lent you $5,000. You paid them back $15,000. And felt grateful for the privilege. That's the trap. But here is what makes it so devastatingly effective. It does not feel like a trap. It feels like convenience. It feels like freedom. It feels like an opportunity. The credit card in your wallet was not given to you as a gift. It was given to you as a tool. Their tool. Placed in your hand. So you would do their work for them. And we have. Collectively. Globally. Generationally, we have been doing their work for them, and calling it normal. Now, before I go any deeper into the mechanics of the system, I want to acknowledge something important. Debt is not always the result of irresponsibility. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Medical emergencies create debt. Job losses create debt. Relationship breakdowns create debt. The rising cost of housing, food, education, transport, these create debt. You did not necessarily get into debt because you were careless. You got into debt because you were human, living in a system that profits from human vulnerability. And that distinction matters, because shame is one of the most powerful tools the debt trap uses against you. As long as you believe your debt is a personal moral failure, you will keep it secret. You will not seek help. You will not look too closely at the system that created it. You will just pay month after month and suffer quietly. But when you understand that debt is a system, a designed, deliberate, profitable system, something shifts. You stop asking what is wrong with me, and you start asking a far more powerful question. How does the system work? because once you understand how it works, you can find the exit. And that exit exists. I promise you, it exists. But it looks nothing like what you have been told. And I will show you exactly where it is. At the 20-minute mark of this recording, keep listening. Section 2, the 3 mechanisms of debt bondage. There are 3 mechanisms that keep people trapped in debt. Not 1, 3. And they work together. Like a 3-lock door. You cannot get through by picking one lock. You have to understand all 3. Mechanism 1. The interest acceleration engine. Most people understand interest in theory. You borrow money. You pay it back with extra. Simple. But the reality of how compound interest works against a debtor is anything but simple. Here is what actually happens. When you make a minimum payment on a credit card, that payment is calculated as a percentage of your current balance, usually between 1 and 2%, which means on a $5,000 balance, you might pay $75 a month. Now here is the cruel part. At 20% annual interest, your monthly interest charge is roughly $83, which means your $75 minimum payment does not even cover the interest. You are going backwards every single month. And your bank calls this a successful payment. But it gets worse, because minimum payments are recalculated monthly as your balance changes, which means as you slowly chip away at the principal, your minimum payment actually decreases, leaving even more interest to accumulate. This is called negative amortization, and it is perfectly legal. It is in the contract you signed, in the small print that no one reads. Mechanism 2. The psychological debt lock. The debt trap is not just mathematical, it is psychological. And the psychological component is perhaps more powerful than the financial one. When people carry significant debt, a very specific cognitive pattern emerges. Researchers call it debt fatigue. Debt fatigue is what happens when the gap between where you are and where you need to be feels so enormous, so insurmountable, so exhausting, that your brain simply stops trying. It is a form of learned helplessness, the same psychological phenomenon documented in laboratory animals who stop trying to escape a situation because every previous attempt has failed. And the debt industry knows this. They know that a debtor who feels hopeless is a debtor who keeps paying the minimum, keeps staying on the hook, keeps generating profit. So the system is actually designed to create hopelessness. High interest rates ensure the balance barely moves. Late fees punish small mistakes disproportionately. Credit limit increases arrive precisely when you have just managed to pay down some balance, tempting you to reload, to start the cycle again. This is not coincidence. This is behavioral science, applied against you. Mechanism 3. The identity debt loop. This is the one that almost nobody talks about, and it may be the most powerful of the 3. When you carry debt for long enough, it stops being something you have, and it becomes something you are. I am in debt. I am someone who struggles financially. I am not good with money. These statements feel like descriptions. They are not. They are identities. And identities drive behavior. Automatically. Powerfully. Invisibly. Here is what the identity debt loop looks like in practice. Someone is carrying debt. They receive a small financial windfall, a work bonus, a tax refund, a gift. And instead of using it to attack the debt, they spend it on something they have been denying themselves, because they deserve it, because they have been struggling so long, because one treat will not hurt. Sound familiar? That is not weakness. That is the identity debt loop in action. The subconscious mind reasoning that a person who struggles financially does what struggling people do, struggles. And so the windfall disappears, and the debt remains, and the identity is confirmed. Once again, breaking the debt trap means dismantling all 3 of these mechanisms. Not just restructuring the numbers, restructuring the psychology as well. And now, we arrive at the moment I promised you. The secret, the thing that changes everything. The one piece of information the debt industry hopes you never hear. 2000 hours, the big reveal. Here it is. The entire consumer debt system is designed around one assumption that it needs you to hold, that needs to feel true, that needs to feel permanent. And that assumption is this, that your only relationship with debt is as a borrower. Think about that. The banks and credit institutions, they borrow money too, from central banks, from depositors, from bond markets. They borrow at 2% and lend to you at 20%. They are not wealth generators. They are wealth middlemen. And here is the secret. The strategy that has set thousands of people free from debt is not about paying more. It is not about budgeting harder. It is not about sacrificing for years until the numbers line up. The secret is this. You must flip the equation. You must stop being only a borrower and start becoming a lender, even while you are in debt. Now, before you dismiss that, stay with me, because this is where most financial advice breaks down. Most advisors say, pay off all debt first, then invest. And for many types of debt, they are right. But the secret is understanding the difference between debt that keeps you poor and assets that make you rich, simultaneously building. Here is how it works in reality. If your credit card debt costs you 20% per year, and your savings account earns you 2%, yes, pay the card first, every time, aggressively. But, Section 3, the debt map. Know what you are fighting. You cannot exit a maze you have never fully mapped. And most people in debt have never truly mapped their debt. They know the rough number. They know the monthly pain. But they have never sat down and laid it all out clearly. Every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment, every due date. And there is a reason for that. Avoidance. Looking at the full picture of your debt feels terrifying, like opening a door you have been keeping shut for years. But here is the paradox. The door is already open. The debt exists whether you look at it or not. The only thing avoidance achieves is to let the trap operate in the dark, where you cannot fight it. So the very first step in your debt exit strategy is radical financial honesty. No more rounding down. No more, I think it is around that much. Exact numbers. Here is how to build your debt map. Get a single piece of paper, or open a fresh document, and list every single debt you carry. Credit cards, store cards, car loans, personal loans, medical debt, money owed to family, buy now pay later balances, student loans, everything. For each debt, write 4 pieces of information: the total balance owed, the interest rate, the minimum monthly payment, and the name of the lender. Now look at that list. Really look at it. What you are looking at is not a list of failures. It is a battlefield map. And every great general knows you cannot win a battle without a map. Now comes the critical part: ranking. There are 2 schools of thought on debt repayment order, and both have merit. Understanding which one fits your psychology is more important than debating which is mathematically superior. The first method is called the avalanche method. You rank your debts by interest rate, highest rate at the top, and you throw every extra dollar at the highest rate debt first, while paying minimums on everything else. Mathematically, this is the optimal strategy. It minimizes the total interest you pay over time. But here is the problem. High-interest debts are not always the smallest debts. They are often the largest, which means it can take months or even years before you feel any visible progress. And debt fatigue can destroy your momentum long before you reach the first win. The second method is called the snowball method, popularized by financial educator Dave Ramsey. You rank your debts by balance size, smallest balance first, and you attack the smallest debt with every extra dollar you have, regardless of interest rate. The moment that debt is gone, you roll its minimum payment into the attack on the next smallest debt. The payments snowball, bigger and bigger, with every debt eliminated. Mathematically, this costs you more in interest, but psychologically, it can be transformative. Because paying off a debt, completely, even a small one, produces a neurological response that is genuinely powerful. Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, hits in a way that feels like winning. And winning feels nothing like debt fatigue. Winning feels like momentum. Research from Harvard Business School showed that people using the snowball method were significantly more likely to successfully eliminate all their debt than those using the mathematically superior avalanche approach. Why? Because behavior sustained over time beats optimal strategy abandoned early, every single time. So which method should you choose? Here is my honest guidance. If your smallest debts also carry the highest interest rates, use the avalanche. The maths and the psychology align. If your smallest debts have moderate or low interest rates, and you have one or two very large high-interest balances, consider a hybrid approach. Snowball the smaller debts first for the psychological momentum, then pivot to avalanche on the large high-interest balances. The specific order matters less than this. Having a system and executing it consistently. Because consistency kills debt. Confusion keeps it alive. Section 4. Finding the money you did not know you had. Here is the objection I hear most often. This all makes sense, but I do not have any extra money to throw at debt. And I understand why it feels that way. Genuinely. When you are living inside a tight budget, it feels like every dollar has a destination already. There is nothing left. There is no extra. But here is what I have learned from studying the finances of people who successfully escaped debt. Almost everyone who thought they had nothing extra found money they did not know they had. Not through luck, through looking. There is a concept called the debt bleeding audit, and it is one of the most powerful exercises I know. A debt bleeding audit is a 30-day exercise in which you track every single outflow of money, not to judge yourself, not to feel bad, just to see, with complete clarity, where your money is actually going. Most people are genuinely shocked by what this reveals. Not because they are reckless spenders, but because money bleeds, in small amounts, through dozens of tiny exits that individually feel insignificant, but collectively amount to hundreds of dollars a month. Let me give you some examples of where debt bleeding typically hides. Subscriptions. The average person pays for between 4 and 7 subscription services, and actively uses about half of them. The others run quietly, in the background, month after month, draining cash, without delivering value. Go right now. Well, not right now, you are listening, but today, open your bank statement and highlight every recurring charge, every single one. Then ask yourself honestly, when did I last use this? Do I actually need this? Is this worth this amount? You will find money there. I guarantee it. The second bleeding point is what I call lifestyle creep debt. This is the spending that expanded to match your income at some point in the past, and never contracted when the income changed, or when the debt arrived. The coffee, the lunches, the upgraded phone plan, the gym you rarely visit. These are not bad things. But when you are in debt, every one of them needs to face a simple question. Is this purchase getting me closer to freedom, or further from it? The third bleeding point is energy inefficiency. Utility bills, insurance premiums, phone contracts. These are bills most people pay without ever questioning. But research consistently shows that the simple act of calling your providers and asking for a better rate reduces bills in the majority of cases. You are a customer. Customers have leverage. Most people never use it. The fourth bleeding point is what behavioral economists call the payment pain gap. When you pay by card or by phone, the neurological pain of spending is significantly reduced compared to using cash. You do not feel the money leaving, which means you spend more, without noticing. A simple experiment. For 1 week, use cash for all discretionary spending. Put your physical notes on the counter. Watch them leave your hand. The spending experience changes completely. Suddenly every purchase involves a decision. And decisions are where financial consciousness lives. Now, once you have completed your debt bleeding audit, I want you to calculate a number. What is the total amount I can redirect toward debt each month, without significantly affecting my quality of life? It might be $50, it might be $200, it might be more. Whatever that number is, it is your weapon. And I want you to automate it. Set it up so that on the day your income arrives, that exact amount transfers, automatically, directly to your priority debt. Before you spend anything else, before the money touches your checking account, before it can find another destination. Pay yourself out of debt first. This single habit is responsible for more debt eliminations than any other strategy one knows. Not because it is magical, because it removes the decision. And when the decision is removed, the old spending habits lose their opening. One more strategy in this section, and it is one that feels uncomfortable to say out loud. More income. I know, you have heard that before, and you may be rolling your eyes. But stay with me, because I am not talking about finding a second job for the next 5 years. I'm talking about one targeted income sprint. A 90-day period, where you do everything within reason to generate additional income specifically earmarked for debt elimination. Selling things you no longer need, taking on one freelance project, picking up extra shifts, monetizing a skill you already have. One focused sprint. A single 3-month period of intensified income effort, applied strategically to your highest interest debt, can shave years off your repayment timeline, not months, years. And the momentum it creates is worth more than the money itself, because momentum defeats debt fatigue every single time. Section 5. The negotiation nobody told you was possible. I want to tell you something that the debt industry hopes you never find out. Your debt is negotiable. Not in theory, in practice, right now, today. The interest rates on your credit cards are not fixed laws of physics. They are negotiating positions, set by institutions that have a very strong preference for keeping you as a paying customer, rather than losing you to a default or a balance transfer. And that preference is your leverage. Here is a fact that most people do not know. Credit card companies have discretionary authority to reduce interest rates for customers in good standing, or for customers who indicate they may be considering a balance transfer to a competitor. You do not need a lawyer. You do not need a financial advisor. You need a phone and 5 minutes of courage. The script is simple. You call your credit card company. You ask to speak to the retention department, not general customer service, the retention department. And you say something like this: I have been a customer for X years. I have a strong payment history. I am currently managing a significant balance and I am exploring my options, including balance transfers to lower rate competitors. Before I do that, I wanted to ask whether there is any flexibility on my current interest rate. That is it. In many cases, they will reduce your rate on the spot, not always dramatically, but even 2 or 3 percentage points on a large balance saves you thousands of dollars over the life of that debt. And if they say no, nothing has been lost. You are exactly where you were before. But they often say yes. The second negotiation most people never attempt is with debt collection agencies. If any of your debt has been sold to a collection agency, Here is something critically important to understand. That agency bought your debt at a fraction of its face value, often between 5 and 30 cents on the dollar. Which means if you owe a collection agency $1,000, they may have paid $200 for that debt. Anything they collect above $200 is pure profit. This means there is enormous room to negotiate a settlement for significantly less than the face value of the debt. This is called a debt settlement, and it is legal, it is common, and it happens every single day. A typical settlement offer begins at 40 to 50% of the outstanding balance, and agencies will often accept it, especially for older debts, or if you can pay the settlement amount as a lump sum. Now, there are important caveats here. Debt settlement can affect your credit score in the short term, and in some jurisdictions there may be tax implications on forgiven amounts. So always do your research specific to your country and situation before pursuing this path. But the point stands. The debt industry presents itself as an immovable force. It is not. It is a business, and businesses negotiate. The third negotiation is one that happens internally, and it is arguably the most important. It is the negotiation between your current self and your future self. Your current self wants comfort now, wants relief now, wants to feel okay right now. Your future self wants freedom, wants options, wants a life unencumbered by monthly payments that chain you to a past decision. Every financial choice you make today is a negotiation between these two selves. And here is how to tip that negotiation in your future self's favor. Make the future self real. Not abstract. Not theoretical. Real. There is a psychological technique called future self-visualization, and studies show it dramatically increases the quality of long-term financial decision-making. Here is the practice. Every morning, before you face any financial decisions that day, spend 60 seconds imagining your life 2 years from now, debt-free, or significantly less burdened. What does that morning feel like? What does checking your bank account feel like? What does saying yes to an opportunity feel like? When you are not dragging months of debt behind you. Feel it, as specifically as possible, in your body, not just your mind. Because your nervous system cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you make the future real enough, your present self begins making decisions on behalf of that future. Not out of discipline, out of identification, because you have become the person who is free. Before the freedom has arrived in the numbers. Section 6. Rebuilding while you repay. Here is a mistake that costs people years of financial progress. Waiting. Waiting until the debt is gone, before starting to save, before thinking about investments, before building any financial cushion. The logic seems sound. Why save at 2% while carrying debt at 20%? Pay the debt first, then save. And as I mentioned at the 20-minute mark, for high-interest consumer debt, this is broadly correct. Throw everything at the high-interest balances. But, and this is a critical but, waiting to build any financial buffer at all, until all debt is cleared, is a strategy that keeps people trapped. Here is why. Life does not wait for your debt repayment plan. The car breaks down, the medical bill arrives, the appliance fails, the job changes. And when that happens, if you have no buffer at all, where does the money come from? The credit card. The same credit card you were paying down. Back to square one. Or worse. This is the debt cycle trap inside the debt trap, and it catches millions of people. The solution is what I call the minimum viable emergency fund. Before you go into full debt attack mode, before you redirect every spare dollar to repayment, build a tiny buffer. Not 3 to 6 months of expenses. Not yet. $1,000. That is the target. $1,000 sitting in a separate account. An account you do not look at, do not touch, Do not count as available spending money. $1,000 as a circuit breaker, so that the next time life happens, you do not have to reach for the credit card. This is not saving. This is armor. Now, there are two other simultaneous financial habits that are non-negotiable, even during active debt repayment. The first is employer pension matching. If your employer matches pension contributions up to a certain percentage, contribute at least enough to capture the full match. This is not optional. This is a guaranteed 100% return on that portion of your money. No debt interest rate beats that. No investment beats that. It does not exist anywhere else in your financial life. Capture every penny that match. The second simultaneous habit is credit score maintenance. Now I know, credit scores are a complicated topic. In many ways they are another tool the financial industry uses to keep you playing their game. But they are also real, and a damaged credit score makes escaping the debt trap significantly harder. Because a low credit score means higher interest rates on any consolidation loans. It means limited access to balance transfer cards. It means more expensive car insurance in many regions. It means, ironically, the debt costs you more. So while you are repaying debt, do these three things consistently. Pay every minimum payment on time. Every single month. Even if it is the minimum, pay it. Do not apply for new credit unless absolutely necessary. Every credit application puts a hard inquiry on your file. Multiple inquiries signal financial desperation to lenders, and you will be penalized for it. And keep your credit utilization below 30% on any card you are not actively paying down. Utilization above 30% signals financial stress and costs you score points. Maintaining your credit health while paying down debt is not hypocrisy. It is strategy. You are not celebrating the system. You are using the system's own rules to make your exit cheaper and faster. Now, let us talk about the psychological rebuilding that has to happen alongside the financial rebuilding. Because if you fix the numbers, but do not fix the relationship with money that created those numbers, the debt will return. Different balances, same story. The research is sobering on this. A significant percentage of people who consolidate debt find themselves carrying the same total level of debt again within 3 years. Not because consolidation does not work, but because the behavior that created the debt was never addressed. So parallel to every financial action in this strategy, you must do the inner work. You must examine the emotional spending patterns, the moments when money becomes a comfort mechanism, when buying something feels like a solution to a feeling. You must look honestly at the social spending pressures, the keeping up, the not wanting to seem like you are struggling, the rounds of drinks you cannot afford, the gifts you overspent on. You must understand your personal debt triggers, the specific emotional states that historically have led you to reach for the card. Stress, boredom, loneliness, celebration, resentment, overwhelm. These are the moments where the debt trap gets its footholds, and naming them is the first step to neutralizing them. Because you cannot fight a trigger you cannot see, but once you see it, you can prepare for it. You can build a response, a circuit breaker, something to do in that moment, other than spend. A walk, a call to a friend, a glass of water, a 60-second breathing exercise, anything that creates a gap between the feeling and the financial decision. In that gap, your future self gets a vote, and your future self always votes for freedom. Section 7. Your 90-day debt exit activation plan. Everything we have covered today is real. It is evidence-based. It has worked for countless people who were in positions far worse than yours may be right now. But information is not transformation. Only action transforms. So I'm going to close this recording with something concrete. A 90-day activation plan that you can begin today. Not next Monday. Not when things settle down. Today. Days 1 through 7. The Clarity Sprint. Your only job in the first 7 days is to achieve total financial clarity. No more approximations. No more avoidance. Complete, accurate numbers. Day 1. Pull every statement, every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment. Build your debt map as described earlier. Day 2. Complete your debt bleeding audit. Track every outgoing transaction from the past 30 days. Categorize them. Find the bleeding. Day 3. Calculate your actual monthly surplus. Income minus genuine essential expenses. What is actually left? Day 4. Identify your minimum viable emergency fund gap. Do you have $1,000 in a separate untouched account? If not, how long to build it at your current surplus rate? Day 5. Check your employer pension matching policy. Are you capturing the full match? If not, find out what you need to do to start. Day 6. Pull your credit report. In most countries, this is available free once per year. Check it for errors. Errors on credit reports are more common than most people realize, and they cost you real money and higher interest rates. Day 7. Choose your debt repayment method: avalanche, snowball, or hybrid, based on your psychology and your specific debt profile. By the end of Day 7, you will have more financial clarity than most people accumulate in a lifetime, and clarity is power. Days 8 through 30, the foundation phase. In this phase, you build the infrastructure of your debt exit. Set up your minimum viable emergency fund account. Separate bank, ideally a different institution to your main account. Make it slightly inconvenient to access. Friction. Protect. Savings. Automate your debt attack payment. Set it up to transfer on payday, before you see the money, before it can be absorbed into daily spending. Call your highest interest credit card company. Ask for the retention department. Request a rate reduction. Follow the script I gave you earlier. Conduct your subscription audit. Cancel everything you have not actively used in the past 60 days. Redirect those funds to your debt attack. Begin your daily 60-second future self-visualization. Do not skip this. It sounds soft. It is not. It is neuroscience, and it works. Days 30 through 90, the momentum phase. By day 30, you have clarity, you have infrastructure, you have your first automated payments flowing. Now you build momentum. If you have not cleared your first small debt by day 30, calculate exactly how many days until you do. Put that date somewhere you can see it. Count down. Identify your 90-day income sprint opportunity. One thing, just one, that could generate additional income specifically for debt elimination. It does not have to be dramatic. Selling 10 items you no longer need. Taking one freelance job. Picking up 4 extra shifts. Whatever is realistic for your specific circumstances. Choose it. Commit to it. Execute it. During this phase, begin deliberately exposing yourself to debt-free stories. Real people. Real journeys. Real numbers. People who started where you are and found the exit. Not to compare. To calibrate. To let your brain see that this is possible for someone exactly like you. Because possibility is the enemy of debt fatigue, and debt fatigue is the enemy of your freedom. At day 90, your review. Sit down with your numbers. Compare day 90 to day 1. What has changed? What has your total debt balance moved? What interest charges have you avoided? What subscriptions are no longer draining you? What new clarity do you have that you did not have before? Acknowledge the progress, even if the numbers feel small. Because here is the truth about escaping debt. The first 90 days are the hardest, not because the numbers are the most challenging, but because you are fighting the most resistance from the old identity, the old habits, the old patterns. After 90 days, the new identity begins to solidify. You are no longer someone trying to get out of debt. You are someone who is systematically dismantling a system that has had its hooks in you for too long. That shift changes everything. Now I want to close with something that needs to be said. Debt is heavy. Really. Genuinely heavy. It affects your sleep, your relationships, your self-worth, your ability to be present in your own life. And if you have been carrying it for a long time, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not your debt. You are a person who has been navigating an extremely difficult system, with imperfect tools and incomplete information. The fact that you are here, that you spent 70 minutes educating yourself, that you chose to face this rather than ignore it, that is not nothing. That is everything. Because the exit from the debt trap does not begin with a budget. It begins with a decision. A decision that today is the last day you allow this system to run your life without your full understanding of how it works. You understand it now. You know the three mechanisms. You know the secret the debt industry hides. You know the debt map. You know the bleeding audit. You know the negotiation strategies. You know the 90-day plan. You are no longer just someone in debt. You are someone who knows how the trap works. And someone who knows how the trap works is already debt does not define you. But your next decision might just free you. This has been the debt exit strategy. How to escape the trap keeping you poor. Now go, execute the plan, and take your life back.